The detection. The stars stretched endlessly across the view screen of the Eternal Dominion, the flagship of the Velkron Empire's 7th Battle Fleet. Fleet Admiral Vexlar stood on the command bridge with his forearms crossed behind his back, watching the patrol route with satisfied eyes. 200 warships moved in perfect formation around him, a display of power that had kept this region of space peaceful for 3 decades. "Admiral, we have something on long-range sensors," Sensor Chief Krell announced, his voice carrying a hint of confusion. Vexlar turned his large head toward the sensor station. "Another merchant vessel off course?" "No, sir. This is different." Krell's clawed fingers moved across his console, bringing up data on the main display. "The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database." The Admiral moved closer, his interest growing. In 30 years of service, he had seen every type of ship the galaxy had to offer. Pirates, traders, exploration vessels, even ancient derelicts. But unknown signatures were rare. Distance. 15 light minutes, sir. The ship appears to be small, roughly frigate class by our estimates. Then why does it concern you, Chief? Krell hesitated, which was unusual for the veteran sensor operator. "Sir, the power readings are wrong. This small ship is putting out energy levels equal to one of our battle cruisers. That shouldn't be possible." A ripple of interest passed through the bridge crew. Battle Coordinator Thex stepped forward from his station, his face showing the warrior's eagerness that made him both valuable and dangerous. "Perhaps it's a new weapon platform. We should investigate immediately." Vexlar raised one hand, calling for patience. "Let's not rush into unknown situations. Krell, can you get a better reading?" The sensor chief worked his controls, then froze. His skin changed color slightly, a Velkran sign of shock. "Admiral, I'm reading the ship's designation now. It says, HKNS Thunderstrike." "HKNS?" Vexlar repeated. "That prefix isn't in our records." "No, sir. But the computer is translating the next part. Human Korean Navy ship." The bridge went silent. Every officer turned to stare at the display. Vexlar felt his heart beat faster. "Human, are you certain?" "The translation matrix is 97% confident, sir." "Humans." The word carried weight across the bridge. Everyone had heard the rumors. A young species from a distant arm of the galaxy, having achieved faster than light travel only a century or two ago. They kept to themselves mostly. But the few reports that filtered through trade networks spoke of a species that advanced impossibly fast. "Too fast for comfort. They're this far from their territory?" Thex asked, his voice tight. "That's concerning." Vexlar studied the data streaming across his screen. The ship sat motionless in space 15 light minutes away. It wasn't running, wasn't hiding, just waiting. Perhaps they're lost. Or exploring. Send a standard greeting on all frequencies. Krell worked his console. "Transmitted, sir." No response yet. Minutes passed. The human ship remained silent and still. "They're ignoring us," Thex said. "That's an insult to the Empire." "Or they're being cautious," Vexlar countered. "We're 200 warships. They're one small vessel. I'd be cautious too." "Sir, I'm getting more detailed scans now," Krell interrupted. His voice was strained. "Admiral, you need to see this." Vexlar moved to stand directly behind the sensor station. On the screen, detailed readings of the human ship appeared. What he saw made his blood run cold. The ship's shields were unlike anything he'd ever seen. The energy patterns didn't follow any known physics. The reactor output suggested it was running on idle power, barely active, yet still outperforming their best engines. The hull materials were dense beyond any known alloy. And the weapons. The weapons were simply marked as unknown configuration. "This can't be right," Vexlar said quietly. "Double-check your readings." "I've checked them 4 times, sir." "The ship is real. Those readings are accurate." Battle Coordinator Thex leaned in to look. His expression changed from eagerness to concern. "If that's a frigate running at idle power, what would their capital ships be like?" It was the question nobody wanted to ask. Vexlar had commanded fleets for most of his life. He'd fought in 2 wars and countless smaller conflicts. He knew power when he saw it, and this small human ship radiated power like a star. "Send 3 scout ships to investigate," Vexlar ordered. "Passive scans only. Do not arm weapons or make any hostile moves." "Yes, sir." The order went out across the fleet. On the view screen, 3 small Velkran scout vessels broke formation and began moving toward the human ship. They were fast, agile craft designed for reconnaissance. They would get close, scan thoroughly, and report back. Vexlar watched them go, feeling uneasy. Something about this situation felt wrong. The human ship just sat there, patient and silent, like it was waiting for something. "Sir, the scouts are closing to 5 light minutes," Krell reported. "Still no response from the human vessel." "Keep trying to communicate," Vexlar ordered. "Tell them we mean no harm. We're simply curious about their presence in this region." Krell transmitted the message. Still nothing. The scouts continued their approach. 4 light minutes, 3, 2. "Admiral, the scouts are beginning their active scans," Krell said. Vexlar watched the display. The scouts' scanning beams reached out toward the human ship. And then something happened that made every sensor on the Eternal Dominion scream warnings. The human ship's power output spiked. Not much, just a slight increase. But it was enough to make Krell gasp. "Sir, they're doing something." Energy buildup detected. "I can't identify the weapon type." "Order the scouts to retreat," Vexlar commanded, his voice sharp. Now, but it was too late. On the display, a beam of pure energy lanced out from the human ship. It wasn't aimed at the scouts. It passed harmlessly between them, traveling out into deep space. The scouts scattered anyway, their pilots panicking at the display of power. Krell worked frantically at his console. "Sir, tracking that energy beam. It's still traveling. 15 light minutes, 20, 25, 30 light minutes before it dissipated." Vex stared at the screen. "That's impossible. The power required to project a beam that far would exceed our entire fleet's output combined," Krell finished quietly. Vexlar felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "Bring the fleet to battle formation. All ships on alert. But do not, I repeat, do not arm weapons yet." The orders flowed out. Across the void, 200 Velcran warships shifted positions, forming a defensive wall between the flagship and the unknown threat. On the view screen, the human ship remained exactly where it was. Still patient, still waiting. That warning shot had been a message. They could have destroyed the scouts. They could probably destroy the entire fleet. But they chose to fire into empty space instead. Vexlar studied the small ship on his display. "What are you?" he whispered. Sensor Chief Krell looked up from his station, his face showing the fear they all felt. "Sir, if that's what their small ships can do, what happens if their fleet arrives?" It was the question that would haunt Vexlar for the rest of his life. Because deep down he already knew the answer. If the humans wanted to, they could sweep the Velcran Empire from space like dust, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. First contact. First Blood Captain Hyun sat in the command chair of the HKNS Thunderstrike, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest as he watched the alien fleet formation take shape on his tactical display. 200 warships, all moving into what looked like a defensive position. He found it almost amusing. "They're scared," Lieutenant Jiwoo said from the weapons station. Her voice was calm, professional. "That warning shot did its job." "Good." Hyun leaned forward slightly. "Yuna, how long since we fired?" Navigator Yuna checked her console. 8 minutes, Captain. Their scouts retreated successfully, no casualties. Engineer Day, status on all systems? From the engineering station, Day looked up with a slight smile. "All green, sir. Reactor is still at 12% output. Shields haven't even been tested yet. We're basically sitting here with the engines running." Hyun nodded. That was the beauty of human engineering. The Thunderstrike could fight for hours at full power and barely strain its systems. But these aliens didn't need to know that. Not yet. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the alien flagship," Yuna reported. "Same message as before. They're asking about our intentions and saying they mean no harm." "Do we have a translation of their language yet?" "Computer's working on it. Should have a full linguistic matrix in about 2 minutes." Hyun considered his options. First contact protocols were clear. Establish communication, show peaceful intent, but never show weakness. The galaxy was full of predators who saw kindness as vulnerability. Humanity had learned that lesson the hard way. "Jiwoo, what are those 3 ships doing? The ones that approached us?" The weapons officer checked her sensors. "They're regrouping with the main fleet, sir, but they're not heading away. Wait." She frowned. "Sir, 3 different ships are moving toward us now. Different class, heavier armor. They're arming weapons." Hyun's expression didn't change. Time to intercept? At their current speed, 12 minutes. They didn't learn from the warning. Hyun tapped his console, opening a channel to all stations. All hands, this is the captain. We may have a situation developing. Stay alert. On the main view screen, the 3 alien warships grew slowly larger as they approached. They were bigger than the scouts built for combat rather than reconnaissance. Their weapons ports were open, energy signatures building. Linguistic matrix complete, Yuna announced. We can communicate now, sir. Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open. Hyun spoke clearly, knowing the computer would translate his words. Attention alien vessels. This is Captain Hyun of the human Korean Navy ship Thunderstrike. You are approaching with weapons armed. This is your only warning. Power down your weapons and withdraw, or we will defend ourselves. The message transmitted. They waited. Nothing. The 3 ships kept coming. Sir, they're not responding, Yuna said. Either they don't care or they're testing us. Range? Hyun asked. Jiwoo watched her display. 8 light minutes and closing. They're accelerating. Hyun made his decision. Dae, charge the EMP cannon. Jiwoo, target those 3 ships. I want precision strikes. Disable their weapons and engines only. No casualties if we can avoid it. EMP cannon charging, Dae confirmed. Ready in 30 seconds. Targeting solutions locked, Jiwoo added. All 3 ships marked, waiting for your order, sir. The seconds ticked by. On the screen, the alien ships grew closer. 5 light minutes. 4. They showed no signs of stopping. EMP cannon ready, Captain, Dae reported. Fire. The Thunderstrike didn't shake or shudder. There was no dramatic flash of light or thunderous sound. From the outside, the ship simply emitted a pulse of electromagnetic energy that spread out in a cone, invisible and silent. The effect was immediate. All 3 alien warships went dark. Their engines cut out, their weapons powered down, even their lights flickered and died. They became nothing more than metal coffins drifting through space. Direct hits, Jiwoo confirmed. All 3 ships completely disabled. No explosions, no breaches. Life support should still be working on backup power. Hyun watched the dead ships on his screen. How long until the main fleet realizes what happened? Light speed delay, Yuna calculated. They'll see it in about 4 minutes. Then we wait. Those 4 minutes felt long. The crew of the Thunderstrike sat at their stations knowing that what came next would determine whether this ended peacefully or turned into a bloodbath. Sir, the main fleet is reacting, Yuna reported. Their energy signatures are spiking. They're powering up weapons across the board. On the tactical display, the Velcron fleet lit up like a constellation. 200 ships, all preparing for war. How many are moving toward us? Hyun asked. Jiwoo scanned the data. 50 ships breaking formation. They're forming an encirclement pattern, classic pincer movement. They're planning to hit us from all sides at once. Hyun stood from his chair and walked to the main view screen. 50 warships. Against most species, that would be overwhelming force. Against the Thunderstrike, it was barely a workout. Recommendations? He asked his crew. We could jump out, Yuna suggested. Leave the area entirely. Avoid the fight. No, Hyun said firmly. If we run, they'll think we're weak. They'll chase us. Better to end this now. I agree, sir, Jiwoo said. But if we fight 50 ships, we'll have to hurt them badly enough to make them stop. That means casualties. Hyun was quiet for a moment. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long and bloody history. They'd almost destroyed themselves a dozen times before finally learning to work together. War was easy. Peace was hard. We'll fight, he decided. But we fight smart. Jiwoo, I want you to target engines and weapon systems only. Make every shot count. Show them we could kill them all but choose not to. Understood, sir. Yuna, evasion protocol Sigma 7. Make us hard to hit. Yes, sir. Dae, keep reactor output under 20%. I want them to know we're barely trying. The engineer grinned. They'll love that, sir. The 50 alien warships closed in, forming a sphere around the Thunderstrike. It was a good tactical formation. Against a normal ship, it would be devastating. Every angle covered. No escape route. "They're firing!" Jiwoo called out. Thousands of plasma bolts erupted from the alien ships, all converging on the single human vessel. The space around the thunderstrike lit up like a fireworks display. "Point defense active," Jiwoo said calmly. "Intercepting." The thunderstrike's defensive lasers began firing at speeds no human eye could follow. Computer-controlled and impossibly precise, they shot down plasma bolts one after another. The accuracy was 90%. The remaining 10% of shots hit the shields and simply vanished, absorbed without leaving a mark. "No damage," Day reported. "Shields at 99.8%, they're not even warm yet." On their view screens, the alien gunners must have been watching in horror as their best weapons accomplished nothing. "Our turn," Hyun said quietly. "Jiwoo, you have permission to fire. Remember, engines and weapons only." "Yes, sir." The railguns on the Thunderstrike were humanity's answer to ship-to-ship combat. Magnetic acceleration drove solid slugs to 30% of light speed. No plasma, no energy beams. Just kinetic force moving so fast that nothing could stop it. Jiwoo fired. The rounds were invisible, moving too fast to see. But the results were not. The first alien ship's engine exploded in a shower of sparks. Not the whole ship, just the engine. The vessel spun out of control but remained intact. The second ship lost both its main weapons in 2 perfect shots. The third, fourth, fifth, one by one, the alien warships were crippled with surgical precision. 14 seconds, Jiwoo announced. 15 ships disabled, Hyun raised his hand. "Cease fire." The railguns went silent. On the tactical display, 15 alien warships drifted helplessly, while the remaining 35 held their fire, clearly uncertain what to do. "Open a channel again," Hyun ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, sir." Hyun spoke slowly, making sure every word was understood. "This is Captain Hyun. We have disabled your ships but left your crews alive. We could have destroyed you all. We chose mercy. I ask you again. Stand down. Let us talk. There doesn't need to be more bloodshed today." He closed the channel and sat back down in his chair. "Now we wait and see if they're smart enough to listen." The fleet's reckoning Fleet Admiral Vexlar stared at the tactical display with all 4 of his eyes, but his brain refused to accept what they were showing him. 15 of his ships disabled in 14 seconds. Not destroyed. Disabled. With precision that shouldn't be possible. "Get me damage reports from all affected vessels," he ordered, his voice tight. Battle Coordinator Thex worked his console frantically. "Reports coming in now, sir." All 15 ships report the same thing. Direct hits to engines and weapons systems only. No casualties among the crews. No hull breaches. The shots were perfectly aimed. Sensor Chief Krell looked up from his station, his skin pale. "Admiral, I've analyzed the weapons fire." The projectiles were traveling at 0.3 light speed. Solid mass rounds, not energy weapons. The targeting was computer perfect. Not a single shot missed its mark. Vexlar felt his stomach turn. "They crippled 15 warships in 14 seconds using solid bullets?" "Yes, sir." "And their reactor output?" Krell checked his readings. "Still under 20%, Admiral. They're barely using any power." The bridge was silent. Every officer understood what that meant. The human ship was toying with them. Playing with them like an adult plays with children. It had the power to destroy them all but chose to simply disable and warn. "We need to withdraw," Thex said suddenly. The battle coordinator who had been so eager for combat just an hour ago now looked shaken. "Admiral, we can't fight this. We're outmatched in every way." "If we withdraw, the Empire will see it as cowardice," Vexlar replied. But even as he said it, he knew Thex was right. "Better to be called a coward than to be dead," Krell muttered. Vexlar turned to face his crew. Every face showed the same emotion. Fear. Pure, simple fear. They had encountered something beyond their understanding, beyond their ability to fight. The human captain sent another message, the communications officer reported. "He says they could have destroyed us but chose mercy. He's asking us to stand down and talk." Thex laughed bitterly. "Mercy, they're offering us mercy. Because they can afford to," Krell said quietly. "Sir, I've been studying their ship's movements during the battle. They were dodging our plasma fire with maneuvers that should tear a ship apart from the G-forces, but their ship showed no signs of stress. That means they have artificial gravity compensation beyond anything we've dreamed of. Vexillar walked to the view screen and looked out at his fleet. 200 ships that had seemed so powerful an hour ago. Now they looked like toys compared to the single human vessel. What do we know about humans? He asked. Krell brought up data on his screen. Very little, sir. They achieved FTL travel approximately 150 years ago. That makes them one of the youngest spacefaring species in the galaxy. They have a homeworld called Earth in the Outer Rim territories. They tend to avoid contact with other species. 150 years, Vexlar repeated. We've had FTL for 3,000 years. How can they be so far ahead of us? I don't know, sir. But if this is what their small ships can do after only 150 years of space travel... Krell didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Sir, we're receiving distress signals, another officer called out. 3 of the disabled ships report life support failing. Their backup power systems were damaged in the attack. Vexlar closed his eyes. He'd sent those ships. He'd ordered them to attack. Now his people were dying in the void because of his pride. Send rescue, he started to say, but Krell interrupted him. Sir, the human ship. It's doing something. On the tactical display, small objects were launching from the Thunderstrike. They moved rapidly toward the disabled Velcran vessels. What are those? Vexlar demanded. Unknown, sir. Small craft, possibly drones. They're heading straight for our damaged ships. Vex moved to the weapons console. Should we fire on them? No, Vexlar snapped. We've done enough damage. Hold fire and observe. The small drones reached the first disabled ship. Through the view screen cameras, they could see the drones approaching the damaged vessel. They attached themselves to the hull and began working. Sir, the ship's captain is reporting, the communications officer said, surprise clear in his voice. The drones are repairing their ship. They're welding hull breaches, restoring power systems, fixing the life support. Vexlar stared. They're helping us? It appears so, sir. More reports came in as the drones spread to other disabled ships. Every report was the same. The human machines were performing emergency repairs, providing power cells, even delivering medical supplies to injured crew members. This doesn't make sense, Vex said. We attacked them. Why are they saving us? Krell looked at his display with something like wonder on his face. Because they can. Because they're so far beyond us that they don't see us as a threat. We're like children who attacked an adult. The adult disarmed us and is now putting bandages on our scrapes. The comparison stung, but Vexlar couldn't deny its accuracy. He thought about the Empire's history, about the dozens of weaker species they'd conquered over the centuries. When those species had resisted, the Velcrans had shown no mercy. They'd crushed opposition without hesitation. But humans fought with precision. They showed restraint, they offered mercy, and then backed it up with action by saving their enemies' lives. What kind of species does this? Vexlar wondered aloud. One that's more advanced than us in more ways than just technology. Krell answered, Sir, I recommend we accept their offer to talk. We have nothing to gain from continued hostility and everything to lose. Vexillar knew he was right. His pride wanted to reject the idea. The Velcran Empire didn't negotiate from a position of weakness. But practical reality couldn't be ignored. If he continued this confrontation, more of his people would die. And for what? To prove a point to a species that could erase them from existence? Open a channel to the human ship, he ordered. Channel open, sir. Vexillar took a breath, knowing that his next words would define his career and possibly the future of his entire civilization. Captain Hyun, this is Fleet Admiral Vexillar of the Velcran Empire. We accept your offer to talk. I am ordering my fleet to stand down and power down all weapons systems. The seconds crawled by as they waited for a response. Then the human captain's voice came through the speakers, calm and measured. Admiral Vexillar, I'm pleased to hear that. I propose we meet via holographic communication to discuss this situation. I believe we can resolve this peacefully. Agreed, Vexillar replied. When would you like to meet? Immediately, if you're willing. The sooner we talk, the sooner we can all move on from this unfortunate incident. Unfortunate incident. That's what the human called a battle where he disabled 15 warships without taking a scratch. Vexillar almost laughed at the understatement. Very well. I'll have my communications officer set up the connection. The channel closed. Vexillar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They looked exhausted, frightened, and relieved all at once. Sir, what do we tell them? Vex asked. What do we say to a species that's so far beyond us? Vexler thought about it. The truth. We tell them the truth. That we're outmatched. That we recognize their superiority and that we hope they're as merciful in peace as they were in battle. Krell set up the holographic communication system. Within minutes, the image of Captain Hyun appeared on the bridge. He was smaller than Vexler had expected, with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform with minimal decorations. He looked young, but his eyes held the wisdom of someone who'd seen combat before. Admiral Vexlar, Hyun said with a slight bow, thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I want you to know that humanity has no hostile intentions toward your people. We're explorers, not conquerors. Vexlar returned the bow, a gesture of respect. Captain, I must ask. Why did you spare us? You could have destroyed my entire fleet. Hyun's expression was serious. Because strength without wisdom is tyranny, Admiral. And because every species deserves a chance at peace before war. I hope today we can start building that peace. Vexlar looked at the young human captain and realized something important. Humanity wasn't just technologically advanced. They were philosophically advanced too, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of their weapons, but because of their ideas. Understanding and Alliance Captain Hyun studied the alien admiral on his holographic display. Fleet Admiral Vexlar was tall, with 4 arms and a face that reminded Hyun of Earth's lizards. But his eyes showed intelligence and, more importantly, they showed humility. That was a good sign. Admiral, before we begin formal discussions, I want to address something, Hyun said. Your crew's on the damaged ships. Are they safe now? Vexlar seemed surprised by the question. Yes, Captain. Thanks to your repair drones, all ships have been stabilized. We've had no casualties. Good, that's what matters most. Hyun leaned back in his chair. Now let's talk about what happened here today. You detected my ship and sent scouts to investigate. That was reasonable. But then you sent armed warships when we posed no threat to you. Why? The alien admiral was quiet for a moment. Honestly, Captain? Fear. Your ship's power readings frightened my crew. We didn't understand what we were seeing and fear made us aggressive. Hyun nodded. I appreciate your honesty. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, but it's also dangerous. It leads to mistakes like today. Indeed. Vexlar gestured with one of his 4 arms. Captain, I must ask you something that my entire crew wants to know. What is the Thunderstrike? A small patrol ship shouldn't have the power you demonstrated today. Hyun smiled slightly. The Thunderstrike is a frontier patrol vessel. It's designed for long-range exploration and first contact situations. It's not our most powerful ship by a significant margin. He watched Vexlar's face change color slightly. Sensor Chief Krell, visible behind the Admiral, looked like he might faint. Not your most powerful? Vexlar repeated slowly. No, sir. This is actually one of our smaller military vessels. We have cruisers, battleships, and carriers that are much more capable. Lieutenant Jiwoo turned in her chair to look at Hyun with a slight smile. She knew what he was doing. Establishing the power dynamic clearly without arrogance, just stating facts. Vexlar sat down heavily in his command chair. Captain Hyun, I think we need to have a very honest conversation. My sensor chief tells me that humans have only had faster-than-light travel for about 150 years. Is that correct? Yes, approximately 147 years to be exact. The Velcron Empire has had FTL for 3,000 years. In all that time, we haven't developed technology even close to what you've shown today. How is that possible? Hyun had expected this question. It was the obvious one. May I be completely honest with you, Admiral? Please. Humans nearly destroyed themselves. Multiple times. Hyun's voice was serious now. We had massive wars that killed billions. We created weapons that could wipe out all life on our planet. We came within minutes of total annihilation at least 3 times in our history. Vexlar leaned forward, listening intently. But we learned from it, Hyun continued. We learned that competition without cooperation leads to extinction. We learned that our different nations and cultures were stronger together than apart. When we finally unified our world and focused all our energy on advancement instead of conflict, our progress accelerated dramatically. You unified your entire species? Vexlar sounded shocked. The Velcron Empire controls 200 worlds, but we've never achieved true unity. There are always factions, always conflicts. It wasn't easy, Hyun admitted. It took centuries and a lot of pain. But eventually we realized that we were all humans first and everything else second. That shift in thinking changed everything. Engineer Day spoke up from his station. Captain, if I may add something. Go ahead, Day. The engineer looked at the holographic display. Admiral, when all of humanity's resources and brilliant minds started working together instead of against each other, the results were exponential. Our technology didn't just improve steadily, it exploded. Every breakthrough led to 10 more. Every problem solved opened up new possibilities. Navigator Yuna added. We also learned from our mistakes. When we went to space, we made a decision as a species. We would be explorers and friends, not conquerors and tyrants. We'd seen what conquest and empire building did to Earth. We didn't want to repeat those mistakes among the stars. Vexillar was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, his crew members were listening carefully. Finally, the Admiral spoke. Captain Hyun, the Velcron Empire has existed for 4,000 years. In that time, we've conquered dozens of species. We've always believed that might makes right, that the strong should rule the weak. Are you saying that philosophy is wrong? Hyun chose his words carefully. I'm saying it's a choice, Admiral. Every species decides what kind of civilization they want to build. You can build an empire based on force and fear, but that empire will always need to use force and fear to maintain itself. Or you can build a civilization based on cooperation and mutual benefit. That kind of society grows stronger over time instead of weaker. But you have weapons, Vexillar pointed out. Very advanced weapons. You could conquer if you wanted to. We could, Hyun agreed. But we won't. Do you know why? Why? Because we've learned that having the power to do something doesn't mean you should do it. True strength is knowing when not to use your power. Today I could have destroyed your entire fleet, but what would that accomplish? It would create enemies, spread fear, and ultimately make the galaxy a more dangerous place for everyone, including humans. Sensor Chief Krell spoke up for the first time. So you show mercy because it's strategically beneficial? Partly, Hyun said. But also because it's the right thing to do. Your crews have families waiting for them at home, just like my crew does. Why would I take away husbands, wives, parents, and children when I don't have to? Lieutenant Jiwoo turned to face the hologram. Admiral, if I may speak plainly? Vexillar nodded. Humanity learned something important from our bloody history. Every enemy you make today could have been an ally. Every life you take unnecessarily is a loss for everyone. We're all just trying to survive and thrive in this big, dangerous universe. Why make it harder for each other? Vexillar looked at his own crew, then back at the humans. Captain Hyun, I want to be honest with you. When I return to Velcron space and report this encounter, there will be panic. My superiors will see humanity as a threat. They may want to mobilize forces against you. I understand, Hyun said calmly. But I hope you'll also tell them what happened today. That humans offered peace first. That we showed restraint and mercy. That we saved your crews instead of killing them. Maybe that will help them see us as potential allies instead of enemies. Maybe. Vexillar didn't sound entirely convinced. But the Empire has never dealt with a species more powerful than itself. This will be difficult. Hyun stood from his chair. Admiral, I'm going to do something that might seem strange to you. I'm going to give you a gift with no strings attached. A gift? Yes. Navigator Yuna is going to transmit to you our star charts for this region of space, our first contact protocols, and the communication codes to reach our diplomatic corps. If your empire wants to establish formal relations with humanity, they can use those codes. Vexillar looked confused. You're giving us access to your diplomatic channels? What if we use them to infiltrate your systems? Hyun smiled. You won't be able to. Our computer security is very good. But more importantly, I trust that you understand the value of peace now. You've seen what our small ships can do. Imagine what our entire civilization could do. But also imagine what we could accomplish together if we were allies instead of enemies. That's a very optimistic view, Captain. Maybe. But optimism built our civilization, Admiral. Fear nearly destroyed it. I choose optimism. Engineer Day transmitted the data package. Sent, Captain. They have everything. Vexillar looked at something off-screen, probably checking the data. This is comprehensive. You're really just giving this to us? Yes, because trust has to start somewhere. I'm choosing to trust that you'll use it wisely. The alien admiral stared at Captain Hyun for a long moment. Then slowly he stood and gave a formal Velcron salute, all four arms crossing over his chest. Captain Hyun, today you have taught me more than I learned in 30 years of military service. The Velcron Empire may not deserve your trust, but I will do everything in my power to earn it. Hyun returned the gesture with a human salute. That's all anyone can ask, Admiral. Safe travels back to your space. And I hope next time we meet it will be as friends. The hologram faded. Hyun sat back down in his chair and looked at his crew. They were all smiling. Well done, everyone, he said quietly. Today we made the galaxy a little safer. The new dawn 6 months had passed since the encounter. Fleet Admiral Vexlar stood in the Grand Council chamber of the Velkron Empire, facing the High Command and the Emperor himself. The room was massive, with high ceilings and walls covered in tapestries showing the Empire's greatest victories. Today felt different from all those past glories. Admiral, the Emperor said from his throne, his voice echoing in the chamber, you have made a recommendation that many find controversial. You believe we should establish formal diplomatic relations with the humans? Vexlar stepped forward. Yes, Your Majesty. I have spent the past 6 months studying everything we know about humanity. I have reviewed the sensor data from our encounter 100 times. I have consulted with our best scientists and strategists. My conclusion is clear. Humanity is the most significant power we have ever encountered, and they are offering us friendship. To reject that would be foolish. A senior general spoke up from the council seats. They embarrassed the Empire. They disabled 15 of our ships in seconds. How can we make friends with those who humiliated us? They could have done far worse, Vexlar replied calmly. They could have destroyed the entire fleet. They chose mercy. That shows character, not weakness. Character that makes them dangerous, another council member argued. If they're so powerful and so merciful, why shouldn't we fear them taking control of the galaxy? Vexlar had expected this argument, because in 6 months they've done nothing aggressive. They've continued their exploration missions. They've avoided confrontation with all species. They've even shared some of their medical technology with the Keldan Union after a plague broke out in their colonies. Does that sound like a species planning conquest? The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. Admiral, you were there. You faced their ship. Tell us honestly, if we went to war with humanity, what would happen? The room went silent. Everyone waited for Vexlar's answer. We would lose, Your Majesty. Completely and absolutely. It wouldn't even be close. The Thunderstrike was a small patrol vessel. They have hundreds of ships more powerful than that. Our technology is centuries behind theirs. Our tactics are obsolete against their capabilities. A war with humanity would be suicide. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some demanded that the Empire increase military spending. Others called for alliances with other species against the human threat. A few suggested retreating into isolation. The Emperor raised one hand and the room fell silent. Admiral Vexlar, you have served the Empire faithfully for 40 years. I trust your judgment. What do you recommend we do? Vexlar took a breath. I recommend we accept humanity's offer of friendship. I recommend we learn from them. Not just their technology, but their philosophy. They unified their entire species and accomplished in 150 years what we haven't achieved in 4,000. Perhaps it's time we asked ourselves why. An old council member, one who had been silent until now, spoke up. Are you suggesting we abandon the Imperial way? That we stop being Velkran? No, Vexlar said firmly. I'm suggesting we become better Velkrans. The humans didn't stop being human when they changed their civilization. They became the best version of what humans could be. Why can't we do the same? The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and everyone in the room bowed. Admiral Vexlar, I am making you our first ambassador to humanity. You will go to Earth and establish formal diplomatic relations. You will learn everything you can about them, and you will help us decide what kind of empire we want to be in this new reality. Vexlar felt surprise and honor wash over him. Your Majesty, I accept this duty with gratitude. Good. Because the galaxy is changing, Admiral. With or without us. I'd rather we be part of that change than swept away by it. 3 months later, Vexlar stood in a human city on Earth called Sol. The city was beautiful, full of green spaces and tall buildings that seemed to touch the sky. Humans walked the streets in peace, different races and cultures mixing freely. There were no soldiers on corners, no security checkpoints, just people living their lives. Captain Hyun had come to meet him personally. They walked together through a park, watching children play while their parents relaxed on benches. Your world is beautiful, Captain, Vexlar said, and peaceful. How do you maintain order without a heavy military presence? Hyun smiled. When people's basic needs are met, When they have opportunity and hope for the future, they don't usually cause trouble. We learned that crime and violence usually come from desperation and hopelessness. Fix those problems and most conflict goes away. It sounds simple when you say it like that. The idea is simple. Making it reality is hard. It took us a long time to get here. We had to overcome a lot of prejudice, a lot of greed, a lot of short-term thinking, but eventually enough people decided that a better world was worth working for. They stopped at a memorial. It showed a broken nuclear missile with flowers growing from the cracks. The inscription read, "From the ashes of our worst nature, we built our best future. This is what drives us," Hyun said, pointing at the memorial. We remember how close we came to destroying everything. That memory keeps us humble. It reminds us that power without wisdom is death. Vexillar looked at the memorial for a long time. "Captain, I have a confession. When I first met you, I thought humans were naive, too merciful, too trusting. I thought those qualities would make you weak. And now I understand that mercy from a position of strength is the ultimate power. Anyone can destroy. It takes true civilization to build and preserve." Hyun nodded. "That's what we're trying to do out here among the stars. Build something better than what we left behind on Earth. We want to explore, learn, make friends. The galaxy is big enough for everyone." "Not everyone will see it that way," Vexillar warned. "There are species out there that will see humanity as a threat. Some will try to destroy you before you become too powerful. We know. We're prepared for that. But we're also prepared to offer peace to anyone who wants it. Like we did with you." Vexillar watched the children playing in the park. Alien children, not human. Visitors from other worlds who came to Earth to learn and explore. They played together without fear or hatred. "Captain Hyun, I have a question. If the Velcran Empire had attacked you with full force that day, what would you have done?" Hyun's expression became serious. "We would have defended ourselves. We would have disabled as many ships as we could without killing. But if you had left us no choice, if it was truly your lives or ours," when he paused, "we would have done what was necessary. But it would have haunted us. Every life lost would have been a failure in our eyes. Even enemy lives, especially enemy lives, because every enemy could have been a friend. That's the real tragedy of war, Admiral. Not just the death, but the missed opportunity for something better." They walked in silence for a while. Finally, Vexillar spoke. "I'm going to recommend that the Emperor begin reforms. Not sudden ones that would destabilize the Empire, but gradual changes, moving away from conquest toward cooperation. It won't be easy. Many will resist. Change never is," Hyun agreed. "But it's worth it. Look around you, Admiral. This is what's possible when people choose hope over fear, cooperation over competition." Vexillar looked at the peaceful city, the happy people, the integrated cultures. "Captain, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you ever worry that humanity's mercy will be its downfall? That someone will take advantage of your goodwill?" Hyun stopped walking and turned to face the alien admiral. "Every day. But we decided long ago that we'd rather take that risk than become monsters ourselves. We'll defend ourselves when necessary. We'll be strong. But we won't let fear turn us into the thing we fear. That's a choice we make consciously every single day. That must take incredible courage. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the only way forward that makes sense. We can't control what others do, Admiral. We can only control what we do. And we choose to be better." Vexillar extended all four of his hands. Hyun shook each one in turn. "Captain Hyun, thank you. For the lesson, for the mercy, and for the hope. I will do my best to bring these things back to my people. I know you will, Ambassador. That's why we trusted you." As Vexillar prepared to leave Earth, he sent one final message back to the Emperor. It was simple but powerful. "Your Majesty, I have seen the future. It is human children playing with Velcran children in parks. It is scientists from a dozen species working together to cure diseases. It is starships exploring the unknown not to conquer, but to understand. This future is possible, but only if we're brave enough to choose it." On the Thunderstrike, Captain Hyun read Vexillar's message and smiled. He looked at his crew. Lieutenant Jiwoo was reviewing navigation data. Engineer Day was singing softly while running system checks. Navigator Yuna was planning their next exploration route. "Set course for the Galactic Core," Hyun ordered. "Let's see what else is out there." "Yes, sir," Yuna replied, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Course plotted. Ready when you are. Then let's go explore. Who knows, maybe we'll make some more friends." The Thunderstrike jumped to faster than light speed, leaving Earth behind. Across the galaxy, word was spreading. Stories about the humans who could have conquered but chose instead to befriend.